Chapter 46. That day, the whole palace rejoiced from welcoming the three of them. Their prepared meals as if it was a feast. Emery and Ember were both adored by the maids and knights. Nicholas insisted that they stay in the Emperor's palace for that night. The children surprisingly became close to the Emperor despite not knowing that Nicholas was their father. They just know that he is the kind Emperor who saved them from danger. It must have been blood ties. After they ate their dinner, Nicholas called her to his office. The children were now sleeping in the Emperor's chamber. They must be very tired from all that happened. The moment she steps inside the office, she felt a rush of nostalgia. Everything looks the same yet feels different. There was no place in this room that is untouched by her. She felt at home and yet felt like a stranger in the place. She really wonders how two contradicting emotions was running through her system all at once. Once the door is shut, they came face to face each other. It's been years since he had seen his beautiful face. Why, he asked blankly. Alara sighed. You know exactly why, Your Majesty, she said. I could have protected you, he said, as if accusing her. Alara smiled bitterly. You never chose me, Nicholas. You never did prioritize me. You always only see me once I escape your grasp. Should I always get away from you so you will prioritize me? She said, looking straight at his eyes. He looked away, looking hurt while biting his lips, seemingly holding back his tears. Whatever my decision is, please remember that you pushed me to do it. All these years you never really choose me. You left us in that battlefield when I was hoping that you'll come for me. You let other people sway your decision for me with sympathy. You know that leaving me unattended away from the palace is the easiest way for me to die. She was cut off when Nicholas suddenly grabbed her in her shoulders. She looked at his crying face painted by anger. Frustration, disappointment, and pain. Stop, just stop. I know it's my fault. I know I was in the wrong. But what can I do? Who should I choose? I never asked for this situation. Don't play victim, Nicholas. Everything that's happening is the results of our choice. We are the ones to blame for our own situation. I may have sinned by hiding the twins, but that's the best choice for me that time. I cannot risk the lives of my children. Alara said calmly but with conviction. Does that mean you won't tell me about them ever? If I didn't happen to read the letter, if Pierre didn't go hunting that day and accidentally caught the messenger bird, if he didn't give the letter to me, would I have lived my whole life not knowing them? Alara sighed. Yes, I intended to, she said. Nicholas' hands on her shoulders loosened up. He scoffed. Do you hate me that much? He asked. Hate? Does she still hate him? Surprisingly, she no longer hate him. No. It's been years and now I no longer hate you, she said then. But that also means that I no longer feel anything about you. The only reason I'm here is because I no longer have the choice of hiding them. As much as it pains me, they have duties to perform. And I don't want to deprive them of a royal life they deserve, she said. Nicholas felt like a cold water was thrown at him. Her eyes that looked at him warmly once was gone. Now it's just a cold gaze of an empress on the emperor. One who has duties and obligations to perform. I will be willing to be crowned the empress once again. If only for the children, then please excuse me. Your Majesty, she said. Nicholas was unable to stop her, for his body remained frozen. He didn't know what to say. When he learned that his first son was in conspiracy with Alaris and hiding his children, he has a lot of words in his head. Why did she hide them? Why can't she trust him? Why didn't she try to talk to him? Why is Male the only one allowed to see them? Why? But all those questions were answered that night. He was to blame. All those years together, and he made all sorts of things to make her insecure. He did a lot of mistake in making her think that she was the second choice. He was a trash. He did a lot of wrong. He didn't learn when Alaris almost died, and for the second time, he did something again to lose something so important. Even though she was someone so precious to him. The moment that he learns that his child died, he was beyond devastated. The cold corpse of a child that he cannot let go. Him keeping the body warm, hoping for a miracle to hear its heartbeat. The nights that he held the child, even refusing his duties. He knows it wasn't normal. He knows he's gone mad. But he cannot just accept it. The child that he wanted the most. A sweet princess that he constantly dreamed of every night. She's now gone the last years. There was not a single night that he didn't dream of a sweet little girl holding his hand. She was sweet and so adorable. He used to hang his silly drawings of them as family. In his dreams, she will act spoiled in the dining table, refusing to eat vegetables, and he will easily yield to her whims, but Alaris will scold the both of them, telling him that he's spoiling her too much. In his dreams, Alaris and him will be disturbed by that girl during rainy nights, saying that she was scared of thunders, so they will invite her to sleep with them. In his dreams, he will watch her first steps and hear her first words. And in his dreams, he will teach her how to use a sword. He will be an overprotective father to his first princess, refusing any man who had asked for her hand. But then again, it was all only in his dreams. He will wake up in the morning with wet pillows and a headache. Days are passing by, but he kept on feeling tired, but he needs to keep on working. There were times when he will sleep in the Moon Palace just to alleviate any pain he's feeling, searching for the warm embrace of the woman he let go. He was just so tired. Not once did he attempt to end his life, but he was always caught by Pierre and Caleb. He will always hear Kashana's weep, asking for forgiveness and begging him to come back to his old self, but even him don't know who he is anymore. That was his life for the past years. All of that disappeared instantly when a young girl with golden blonde hair and ocean blue eyes suddenly appeared in the middle of the forest the morning that he was frantically looking at them. The girl was followed by a boy with silver hair and ocean blue eyes. He knew them. This is the first time that he saw them, but it feels like his whole body is screaming on who they are. He can't help but to get down on his horse and hug them, instantly failing hold back his tears. "Mister, I'm sorry, but Mother told us not to talk to strangers," the boy said. This is the first time that he heard his voice, but it sounds so familiar. He hugged them even tighter. "MRH can't breath," the girl said. He then let go. "Your Majesty." Those children, Pierre, who was at the back, said. "Yes, they are," he said, holding the two beautiful children's cheeks. "Nice to meet you," he said. Chapter 47. Alaris was crowned as the Empress once again. The news traveled fast, as well as the appearance of the two imperial children. After months of preparation, once again, Alaris found herself in a room she once run away from. The two table intended for her and for Nicholas. The spacious space filled with nothing but luxury. It's relaxing and yet burdening, constantly reminding her of the weight of the crown. She sat at her usual desk and began reading some documents. Caleb was once again appointed as her aide. He was organizing some files at the cabinet inside the office. It was only the two of them there. "I'm glad you're back, Your Majesty," he said, breaking off the silence. She just smirked. "So you can get away with piles of work," she joked. "Oh, please. You don't know the hell Pierre and I have gone through these years," he said. That made her giggle. Then a knock on the door come, and she commanded. Nicholas came in with a flower crown in his hand. Her one brow lifted. They never had the chance to have a proper conversation after that night again, for they were both busy. Especially Nicholas, who was trying to win the affection of the twins. He's teaching Ember sword fighting while also teaching Emery history and politics. The atmosphere is kinda awkward that Caleb cannot contain it anymore and excuse himself. "Ember asked me to give this to you," he said awkwardly. He looks a lot better now compared when she first saw him couple of months ago. He used his free time playing with Emery and Ember. A lot of times, he tried to use the kids to have her join them during dinner, which she doesn't have a choice but to oblige. Alaris sighed. "What are you doing, Your Majesty?" She asked. "Nothing. Just running some errands for my daughter," he said. "We have a lot of work to do. Please use your time wisely." "That's what I'm doing. I'm running errands for my daughter while also coaxing you to accept me again. Please," he asked with his puppy eyes. He looked like Ember when she was asking for sweets. She smiled a little. "I'll accept the flower, but do some work. We have a lot of things to do," she said. Nicholas' face brightens. He puts the flower crown on her head and quickly went to his desk for work. Days passed by just like that. Nicholas kept on asking her to play with them or join them with their picnics, and she keeps on accepting for the children's sake. She actually hoped that this will last. It's quite peaceful. She was in the Moon Palace's garden that day. She was having a breather after a long day of work when she saw suddenly a movement from the bush. "Who's there?" she asked. The movement kept on and she was about to throw her shoes at it, but she realized it was a child. The child was on his knees looking at her with teary eyes. He looks like around 3 years old. He was a bit thin and is trembling from fear. His cute face is full of dirt nonetheless. His beautiful appearance is still there. His golden blind hair shines under the setting sun, and his ocean blue eyes became more drowning-like because of his tears. "I greet your Imperial Highness the Third Prince," Alaris muttered. The child stand up with his trembling legs. Alaris kneeled down to his face level. She bring out her handkerchief from her pocket and wipe his tears. "My name is Alaris, what's yours?" she said gently. The child was still trembling but lowers his guard a little. "Devi," he said, still trembling. His face reminds her of Ember. It's no surprise as they have the same father. "Are you lost? Where are the servants?" she asked. The child suddenly burst out crying. "Oh my, you really are lost. Do you mind if I hold you? We'll search for your maids together," she asked. Devi spread his arms asking to be held, which she did. This child was so sweet. It's a little relief to have a sweet child in her arms. Ember was a high-maintenance child while Emery was always serious and acts mature. She was hushing the child while wiping off his tears. "Mom," a voice called her. She turns to the direction of the voice and saw the twins being carried by their father. "Ember, Emery," she said and walked towards them. "Who's that?" Ember asked, looking at the boy in her arms. "Oh," she said and looked at the boy. Devi was still trembling and turned away his gaze and burned his face on Alaris's shoulder. "He's your older brother, Devi. He's lost, so I'm helping him find his maids." She said, "He's my brother. He seems sweet, unlike Emery." Ember said, "Hey, I'm here." Emery said, "Oh, he is," she said. She then looked at the silent Nicholas, who was not giving Devi a single glance. That was Shin. She kinda understand the situation. She hugged the child tightly and pursed her lips. So them being happy together was impossible after all. "Your Majesty, I'm going to find the maid of Devi. Please wait inside the palace with the kids," she said, hugging the child in her arms. Nicholas' face brightens and obliged like a puppy. "Let's go play inside, Demon Princess," he said and happily carried the two away. She then turns away. "Also, Devi, do you know that man?" she asked. Devi did not answer, but she felt him buried his face on her shoulders tightly. "What did you do, Nicholas?" She was tucking the children to sleep when Nicholas knocked on the door. "Are they asleep?" he asked. "They just fell asleep," she answered. They just stay silent for a while looking at the twins, then went outside. As they were walking in the hall, she broke the silence with her question. "Have you visited Devi? He seems aloof on you." Nicholas didn't answer, but he just kept on walking. Alaris clenched her fists. "Answer me. What did you do to that child? He was a prince, but he's a bit thin, and the maids seems to be neglectful of their duties. He was supposed to be the heir, but his situation suggests otherwise," she shouted. She knows she shouldn't be shouting in the middle of the hall at night, but she can't help it. "I didn't know he was in that situation." "How can you not know? It was your responsibility," she said accusingly. "Can we not talk about this? Please," he said. Her eyes widened. She covered her mouth with her hands and her knees felt weak from the emotions inside her. "You let that innocent child suffer. Just how much of a trash can you be? It was your child with the woman you love the most." She said, "I no longer love Kashana. It was you who I love," he suddenly shouted, facing her. She took a step backwards. She slowly shook her head from disgust. "You love me?" she asked. "I do. I've been in love with you years ago. That's why I never wanted to let you go. That's why I'm doing my best to win your heart once again," he said, trying to console her. "And what about Kashana? What will happen to her?" he asked almost in whisper. Nicholas didn't answer, but she saw him clenched his fist and his face frowns. "Is that from guilt? You love her since you were a child. She was the person who you fought so hard for. You neglect me so you can assure her that she still has your heart. You let the Duke get away with various crimes with light punishments to protect her reputation. You sacrificed and did a lot of things for her sake. That's how much you love her. And you're telling me that you no longer love her. That you fell out of love. Why she changed. She's no longer the person that I once loved. I thought with her I can have a warm home, but it didn't happen. It was you who showed me what a real family is," he said in whisper. She get it now. Nicholas didn't have the chance to receive love unconditionally, so he also cannot give love unconditionally. Nicholas. That's the thing about being in a long-term relationship. You got to love every version of them. Correct them if they're doing wrong. Gently criticize them, grow with them. But you didn't do any of that. You let her become insecure, causing her to do evil deeds just so she can keep you. You let her do those things as your act of love. You just keep on protecting her without teaching her how to protect herself or even you in return. You have this idea of what should be expected of her, but didn't ask her what she wanted to be. You just kept her in the dark, hoping that she'll understand every whims and decisions of yours. She became so unstable emotionally that she held on his abusive father's hand once more. Can't you understand, Nicholas? That's how much you pushed her. You're the reason why she changed. And now you're neglecting her and your child. Nicholas felt a pang in his heart with her words. It was the first time that he realized his mistakes on Kashana. He was her only solace in this world, and he betrayed and abandoned her. She neglected them as deep inside him. He somehow blamed them for the supposedly death of her child with Alaris. He heard Alaris sighed. It was not entirely your fault, Nicholas. This society was also in the wrong. It's just that I was born from a world different from yours, that's why I can see things in this perspective. I'm not defending your actions, but I hope from this point forward, you'll do things right, she continued. That's right. She was just lucky that she has her past memories. She was just lucky that her parents love her in her second life. She felt a little guilty. If only Kashana and Nicholas has a better childhood, would their fate won't turn out like this. I was also to blame, Nicholas. If only I didn't marry you 8 years ago. If only I choose a different path. Maybe this will all not happen, she said. His face slowly crumpled from pain. Are you saying you regret marrying me, he asked. A little, but marrying you let me meet the twins. If not only for them, I would regret it so deeply. I wanted to turn back time. My selfishness, that time hurts so many people. She said, no, it's not your fault, it's mine, he said. Let's not blame ourselves anymore. No matter how much we regret our choices, it's already done. We just have to look forward for the future. She said. She then started walking past him. And if your love means that it can change based on your own forced perspective for a person, then I don't want it. Maybe one day, I unconsciously stop giving you a warm feeling of home. Will you abandon me? I don't want to live my life trying to win your love and overthinking if you will still love me despite my shortages. Don't turn me into another Kashana, she said, and went back to her room, leaving Nicholas behind. After that night, an unexpected invitation was sent to her palace. Empress Alaris, I hope you're doing well. I know you wouldn't want to, but I was hoping you could join me for a tea this afternoon. Just the two of us, yours truly. Kashana Beatrice Elmia von Silmer. Here's a long chapter for you. I hope you enjoyed this, and yeah, happy 12K reads. Thank you so much for your undying support. Love you guys, and just a heads up. Next chapter will be the final chapter. This time it's for real, not April Fool's, haha. Nighty-night chapter 48-END. The sun was hiding behind the clouds that day. It was a bit windy and a little chilly. Alaris walks towards the greenhouse where Kashana was. She saw her in the middle of the flower beds. She was sipping her tea with grace and elegance. She was like one with the flowers inside the greenhouse. The maids gestured her towards the table. She glanced at Kashana's face. She was still sweetly beautiful as ever, but there was a gloom in her eyes. Is that sadness and disappointment she's seeing in her face? I greet the moon of the Empire, greeted Kashana. She just nodded as an answer and take her seat. I hope you don't mind that I sip tea first to calm my nerves. Kashana started. You didn't call me just for a tea. Right, what is it that you want, she casually asked. Through these years, she tried not to have any animosity on her. After all, she was also to blame for her insecurity. She selfishly married and loved Nicholas despite knowing that she was there, that she needed him more. That's why she also did her part, enduring her misdeeds and turning blind eye on her wrongdoings. She too contributed on Kashana's despair. Can you tell me about your country? She asked while pouring her tea. Her eyebrows met. She's confused. What you know? I always let bad things happen to me because I thought it can't be helped. I thought that it's just the way it is because I'm a girl and I'm powerless. Did you know? The reason father always tormented me is because when I started learning, I asked him that I take lessons with my brother. When I did, I was praised by my teachers for learning so fast. Faster than my brother. That's when things went bad. Because I'm a girl, I cannot be better than my brother who is a male and an heir. She sipped tea on her cup. Why are you telling me this? Alaris asked. I was tormented by my brother and abused by my father manipulating me that as a woman. I only need to make the males more powerful. I should have stayed in their shadows. I just need to be a beautiful flower decoration. A damsel in distress needed to be protected and saved so the man can be revered as someone great and brave. And it happened. Nicholas saved me. I thought my father was right. That I just need to be weak so I can be saved, but he got tired saving me. Tears fell from her face. She was looking at her teacup. Alaris didn't mutter a single word. She didn't know what to say. No words is enough to console her in this country. Only the Empress Regnant can have a little more power, unlike the majority of the women here. I wanted that title, but he wanted to protect me from the dangers of politics, so he gave me a position almost equal to the Empress Regnant, but just like any other women. A mere decoration. Albeit slightly more powerful than the rest. Kashana then looked at her. Alaris felt like drowning from the sorrow in her eyes. Her emotions was so laid bare that it was overwhelming. I didn't want to be like this. I dirtied my hands so many times to keep this life I thought will be perfect. If only I was not born here. There was one person who believed that I can do things. I envy you, Alaris. Nothing did go right in my life. I'm just so tired now, she said. Alaris opened her mouth, but she then shut it again. She sipped her tea, trying to calm the tension. She then gazed away to the sky, for she can no longer contain the overwhelming emotions of Kashana. She stayed silent for a while. I might never understand how you feel, but I'm glad that you have that frustrations in you. Being able to recognize something is wrong is the first step in making it right. My life is not as perfect as it seems. Have you ever had a nosebleed from reading a lot of books? Have you ever developed a stomach issue from drinking so much coffee just to stay awake and not being able to eat properly because of a lot of work? You might want this life, but there were times I want a life like yours. We tend to ask for something that other people have without knowing that there was also something that we have and they envy us for it. We're humans after all, and that's valid, but it cannot be used as an excuse on your misdeeds. Your own decisions are entirely your responsibility, she said, looking at the sky. She then looked straight at her. I understand that you have your circumstances, but we all have those. We might feel that we're the only ones with the biggest problems, but everybody is also struggling with one. But you're right. Maybe if you were born from my world, you might have a much bigger perspective in life. You might have learned a lot and have much more freedom of choice. But what can we do? It's not like we can get everything that we want, she continued. Of course, her country, Los Islas, is not a perfect country for women either. That kingdom also has its own way to discriminate women. From their double standard to always making them in the wrong with crimes like rape and harassment. They were victim blamed. She was just lucky. The world she's referring to is her world in her first life. She was just lucky that she remembers her first life. She was just lucky that she knows the rights and wrongs of the society based on modern perspective. She used that knowledge to make the women's situation in Los Islas much more comfortable. If it wasn't for her memory of her first life, she would have ended up like Kashana, believing that her role is to be a wife who make her husband shine. A decoration, a flower, nothing more, nothing less. Kashana nodded. I gave Mel all the evidences of me and my father's crime. I will accept any punishment, even death, but please, I beg of you. I know this is shameless, but please delay the punishment until Devi was old enough to be on his own. He was a victim of my sins. That child didn't do anything wrong, she said, crying. A mother is still a mother after all, I understand. Thank you, Alaris simply said. She then got up and was about to walk away, but Kashana stopped her. Kashana bowed down in her lowest. I sincerely apologize for all the things I did and for trying to kill your children. I know this is not enough, but I will still apologize. I beg for your forgiveness, she said with all her sincerity. Alaris just looked at her, trembling back. She then continued walking away from the greenhouse, leaving Kashana still on her stance. The moment Male handed Nicholas all the evidences of the conspiracy of Duke Almia, it came in brutal. Turns out he was the one who spread the disease just so he can create the cure and monopolize its market. He was the one who tried to kill her by intentionally saying they only have one cure and gave it to his daughter. The rebellions that Male suppressed years ago was also his doing. Corruption, tax evasion, murder, bribery, and many more dirty crimes. It was enough to erase his name and his family on history. Duke Elmia was executed in public. His assets and title are confiscated by the imperial family, and the heir of the duke was reduced into a beggar. Kashana, who was part of some crime, is taken down from her position. She was banished in a countryside and was banned from stepping foot in the capital. She begged her son Devi to join her as she knows the contempt he'll earn once he stayed there. But Devi was stripped off from his title as a prince and was only given enough amount as a financial support. Mail also voluntarily stepped down from his position as the first prince. A lot of things happened and years passed by. Emery and Ember was now in their 20s. When they were 5, they keep saying weird things like going back in time to protect their mother and father, but they just dismissed it as a joke, thinking it must have been a child's wild imagination. Emery became the heir of her home country, the Lossless. Ember took on an archduke title granted by Nicholas and will act as a sword of the Empire. And the one who inherits the throne, Nyra Maeve von Silmer, the second princess and the youngest child of Alaris and Nicholas. She was an accidental child of a drunken mistake. But this child surprisingly has the right authority, power and greed befitting of an emperor. The first female emperor of the Empire one day. Nyra was having tea with her mother at her place. "Mom, you know you can now be free," she suddenly said. "What's this all of a sudden?" Alaris asked. "I know you don't love Dad. I don't know what happened, but I know that we're the only reason you were staying with him, but now we're fine now. You can now do whatever you want to do, Mom," she said. Alaris smiled gently. "You don't have to say those things," she said. Nyra held her hand gently. "I want Mom to choose her freedom and happiness this time. We're fine now, please. I want you to be truly happy." She pleaded. Tears fell down from Alaris's eyes. It's been years since she cried. "My daughter's all grown up now. When did you become this big and even worrying about your mother?" she asked, crying. "You can't treat me as a child forever." "I'm 19 now," she said. Alaris caressed Nyra's cheek and hugged her. It's time for her to choose her happiness now. That night she went to the Emperor's bedchamber. She was holding a piece of paper. "A key to her freedom, Nicholas, we need to talk," she said when the door opened. She immediately handed him the divorce paper. "This will be the second time I'm doing this, but definitely the last time. Please divorce me. I'll grant my daughter's wish on gaining true happiness and freedom," she said, smiling genuinely. END. Hi, good evening. Here's the final chapter of the main story. I hope you enjoyed this. Don't worry, we'll have 8 side stories to give resolutions on what happened on other characters. Thank you so much for helping me reach a 13K reads and for your support. Thanks you so much for enjoying the journey of Alaris and Nicholas Lovelots. Side story 2. It was written in history that under the first female emperor Nyra Maeve von Silmer, the Fil-Leon Empire thrives. It was their golden era. The emperor was wise, strong, and compassionate. It was said that she inherited all the good qualities of her parents when it comes to ruling. She was opened more path for females in their kingdom, something that she learns from her mother. Equal opportunities growing up. She learned from the maids that she was an accidental child. Her mother got drunk after a long day of work and accidentally slept with her father. But her mother never let her feel that way. She always made sure that she knows that her birth was blessed. She was very fortunate. Both her parents love her dearly, her siblings. Even though they fought a lot, she cherishes them and they cherishes her in return. She might be the only one who is revered a great emperor, but for her, it was her whole family that should take the credit. Every piece of her were put together by her family. She was really fortunate, however, since she was a child. She constantly see her mother looking at the window. She was like searching for something. When she asked her one time what she was looking at, she answered, "I was wondering how it feels like to be free." Nyra didn't understand that time what she said, but as she grew up she notices more and more the solitude of her mother inside the palace. She was happy when she's with the 3 of them, but always sad when she's with her father. Even though her father tried his very best to be sweet to their mother, she just won't budge. That was when she can no longer take it. She cannot afford to see their mother become wasted inside the palace. She suggested that they got a divorce weeks later. Her mother went back to their home country together with Emery. Ember and her was left alone in the palace, but she's fine. She wanted her mother to be happy, but now her father resides in her mother's chamber. All he did was work, eat, and sleep. During his free time, he will just stare through the window where the palace's gate is seen, as if waiting for someone. "I'm sorry, father. I was the one who suggested the divorce to mother," she one day said. Her father was once again looking through the window. "It's not your fault, I was the one at fault. My selfishness, obsessiveness, and greed. Your mother just got fed up on me. I exhausted all things to make her fall in love with me again, but it was to no avail," he said without looking at her. It was said by her nanny that his father was so delighted when the one mistake resulted in her conception. He thought Alaris will now open up to him, but reality is much cruel. Alaris was still distant and indifferent. His father did all he could think of doing to make her mother's heart beat again for him once more, but it took him so long that it's now shriveled and dry from pain and neglect. It can no longer be revived. "Why don't you write mother letters?" she said. "She won't give me an answer," he replied. "You've been rejected by her for almost 2 decades. Why would it matter if she didn't answer your letters?" Nicholas finally looked at her. He then smiled a little. "Then perhaps it's a good way to kill time instead of waiting for nothing," he said. There was also another child who became the poor victim of all the things that happened. He saw his own mother being dragged away by the knights on the command of his beloved Empress mother. He was betrayed by the elders who he thought adored him. His family was stripped down of their title, and his mother suddenly disappeared, most likely dead. His grandfather grew angrier from what happened to his daughter. Naveen grew up spoiled and loved by many. At least that's what he thought. He was cherished by his mother and grandfather, trying to push him to the throne. But he always politely said he didn't want to take on the throne. After all, he loves his older brother, and he thinks that he was more suitable to be the heir. Every time he shows his disinterest to the heir position, he will see her mother's expression darkens, but only for a while, and always smile after, so he brushed it off. He thought that his life is now perfect. His mother loves him, his father loves him. Empress mother adores and spoils him. His grandfather showers him with gift, and his older brother was very close to him. But one day everything changed. That was when his mother got dragged by the knights in front of his eyes. He didn't know why. Resentment started sprouting in his heart. It was the Emperor and the Empress's fault. "They killed your mother. You must take the throne so you can avenge her." That's what his desperate grandfather's plea. He was scared, but at the same time angry and confused. Why would they do that to his mother? When the Emperor tried to persuade him to choose him over his grandfather, he refused. He believed he also contributed to what happened to his mother. His grandfather, who was stripped down of his title and all his assets got confiscated, was now living in a faraway city. He went with him. Life there was not easy. He was no longer a prince that has maids to serve him in his every breath. It was hard. There was a time that he vowed to get revenge. But a silver-haired foreigner girl cleared his clouded mind. "You're a crybaby when you were a kid, but now you're an idiot. Shall I tell you what really happened? I'll do you a favor since you grew up so handsome." The 20-year-old lady with silver hair and black eyes said teasingly and arrogantly. She was someone who was traveling and accidentally saw him inside the forest gathering woods. "You Hyseal young," he muttered. That's when everything changed in his world. "Hi. I'm back with a side story, hi. And I'm so happy that the reads of this story is still growing. Thanks so much, guys. Another side stories will be released tomorrow. Nighty Side Story 3. Ever since he was stripped off Ho's title of the first prince, Mail became a wandering knight. He always loved to travel, and now that he was free of every burdening things that came from being an imperial member, he decided to fulfill his dream of traveling. Sometimes he will send some letters to his father and Empress mother asking them how they're doing and giving them news of the strange things he discovered while traveling. One day he was in a small restaurant in a village. It was far away from the capital. He was observing the village. Life there was peaceful. A little boring compared to the extravagant life in the capital, but this is just as he wanted. A peaceful and relaxing life. He plans to stay here for half a year before departing again to travel. When he was about to went in the inn he's planning to stay, he was stopped by a small child. He was crying as he was being bullied by other kids. He was about to take action to stop them, but a beautiful woman with curly sky-blue hair and shining purple eyes scolded the bullies. She then hugged the crying child. It was a beautiful sight of a brave mother protecting her child. She was so sweet and caring to the child. Male felt a pang on his chest. I guess you can be a good mother. He can't help but utter. Kashana, who was laying on the ground comforting Devi, looked up at him. Her pretty face was painted in guilt and shame. You know, mother, my first memory of you was when you were frantically yelling to my face that I must become an emperor and must do my very best to be a good child. I did that, didn't I? But never once did I receive that kind of treatment from you, he said with his pained voice. Kashana lowered her gaze and hugged Devi tighter. I'm sorry. I apologize for everything that I did wrong. If you want to vent your anger, give it to me. Just don't let Devi be involved. We want to live a normal life now, she said. Male scoffed. Do you view me now as some kind of monster? But I am the child that you raised, mother. How can you view me like that, he said bitterly. I know this is shameless, but please just leave us alone. We're already paying the sins I've done, she said. Male clenched his fist, trying to control the swirling emotions in him. Did you ever love me, mother, or you really just view me as someone you can use to gain power? He asked. I did love you as a mother. I cherished you. I know I did hurt you a lot. I regretted it. If only I can turn back time. If only I can correct all my mistakes. If only I can become a good mother to you. But it's too late now for us, right? She said, crying. Love, does that mean she no longer feel that way? Is motherly love really disappear? He thought it was something supposed to be unrequited. I know I'm not a perfect child. I know I'm not your desired child. It hurts when reality slapped me with that fact. But I no longer want to beg for your love. There's much more amazing people who fulfilled your role in my life. Male sighed. This is enough. He no longer wanted to hold on to her like she said. It's already too late for them. Goodbye, former Empress consort Kashana. I wish you the best in life, he said, and then leave. As a human, Male have so much sympathy for his mother, but as her child he had so much anger for her. Kashana loved Male so much when he was born. He was her miracle and life. For the first year of his life he gave it her all into taking care of him like a normal mother to her child, as her husband is so busy with work. Your father is so busy, so he can't see us right now. But I promise to give you twice as much love and care to make up for him. That's what she'll always say while hushing him to sleep and kissing his forehead. But at some point, when Nicholas started bringing other women, she also started panicking. She pushed Male to his limits, thinking it was the right thing for her to do. He must be the best, so Nicholas will not look away from them. She didn't consider what the young Male might feel. But most of all, growing up, Male started to resemble her brother. Someone who she was so envious of, as he was only able to inherit the duchy because he was a boy. The fact that she can see her brother in her son made her feel indifferent to Male. But still, she had done her best to make him shine the most. She almost thought she succeeded, but Male started to soften when Alaris came. Another trait of her brother. That's why she started growing animosity towards her son. So she became harsher and harsher on him. When her youngest was born, she was so delighted that he looked like Nicholas, the person she loved the most. That's also why she came to love the child so much that she doesn't want to separate them, even if it means living a simple lifestyle. I know I'm not your desired child. It hurts when reality slapped me with that fact. But I no longer want to beg for your love. Male's words keep on ringing in her head. She was really a terrible mother to Male. That night she cried and cried. She wanted to hold his first child once again. She wanted to hold her first miracle that made her feel to give someone a love so great that she can do anything for the small life in her hand. That's right, Male. Forget this awful mother of yours and live your life to the fullest. It was written in Devi's memoir that his mother dies early from depression and pain. She even developed a dementia before dying. He didn't know who she was longing for, but she will always hug a stuffed toy that he brought her and hush the toy as if she was putting a baby to sleep. She will always call the toy Male and apologize repeatedly. Hi, happy 16K reads. Thanks so much for the growing reads, everyone. We're now down to the last 3 side stories. Stay tuned, and by the way, like I've said, I'll be publishing another story soonest. It's entitled As Adrift. I hope you'll love it and support that story as well. Thank you, and Nighty Side Story 4. Kashana faced a lot of hardship ever since she was born. Her loving mother died giving birth to her. That's why her father blamed her. He neglected her when she was a child. To earn her father's approval, she worked hard on her classes and was praised so much by her teachers. However, instead of being praised, she was scolded and physically abused by her father because she was a girl and she's not supposed to be better than her brother. The heir of the duchy, her brother, was a scaredy cat. He was not suitable to be an heir to the duchy. He was smart but easily manipulated, soft-spoken, and a pushover. That made her father more frustrated. After all the children that his beloved wife gave birth to was both useless for him, and she died giving them life. There was only one light in Kashana's life. That is Nicholas. He always helped her when she was in need. He was her savior as long as he was at her side. Everything will be fine. Her father was also pleased that she got the crown princey attention. She thought that her father was right. The only thing she needs to do was to become an obedient woman for Nicholas. Everything was going smoothly until her brother can no longer take the pressure from his father and run away together with his lover. A commoner night, when his father found out about it, he took out his anger in her and physically abused her. When she could no longer take it, she ran towards Nicholas, and as she expected, he protected her. He married her and became the crown princess. Someone even his father cannot touch. She was at peace for a short period of time. She has a loving husband, and their son was sweet and cute. She loved Male with all her heart when he was still a baby. That changed when Nicholas brought 2 women as his concubines. She has no choice but to make Male a strong contender of the throne. She enforces teachings she knew from his father. But over time she notices some similarity of Male to his older brother. He was smart, but he has a soft heart and easily manipulated. Traits that are not suitable for an heir. So she made a decision to make her teachings harsher. And it worked. Male became someone mature for his age and often hide his emotions. But another change happened. Alaris came and gave her sympathy to the young Male. This made Male's character falter and sometimes act like a child. So she resumed her harsh teachings, thinking it was for his own good. In the imperial palace, one must be strong so they can survive. She didn't realize that to Male she was becoming like his father to her, an abusive parent, and the moment she realized it, it was already too late. And Male has grown to be a splendid adult. He may be far from what she expected him to be, but he was still happy and contented. Male never see her again, even after she died. Perhaps it was her punishment for the things she did and the things she didn't do for him. Kashana woke up as a child of the modern world after her death. They were poor and her life is far harsher than when she was an aristocrat. But she was allowed to be her best. She was allowed to study and become whoever she could be. She regained freedom, something that she always hoped for. Then she remembered Alaris' words. Maybe if you were born from my world you might have a much bigger perspective in life. You might have learned a lot and have much more freedom of choice. And she did. Her perspective became wider and her choices became better. Her life was not perfect, but at least she was free from constraint of the high society. Her parent right now might not be perfect, but they were a little better than her abusive father. It was not easy, but she made it nonetheless. Side Story 5. The first time that Ember and Emery met Hyseal was a year after they were reinstated as the prince and princess of the Empire. They were there on the glass house having picnic by themselves. They were sitting in a picnic mattress and eating snacks. Are you really Mommy Ninang's daughter? The 12-year-old Hyseal asked Diane. I'm pretty just like Mommy, Ember said confidently. Emery was leaning against the tree and reading a book, not minding the bickering of the two. You don't look like her at all, look at me. I have the same silver hair as her. If we asked other people, I'm sure they will think that I am her daughter and you're adopted. She teased Ember. I'm not adopted. Ember said, starting to get annoyed. Oh really? I heard your daddy has so many women that my kind Mommy Ninang took take of you in behalf of some girls. No, I have a twin, idiot, she shouted. Oh, Emery was definitely Mommy Ninang's son. He even has the power of spirits. You're the only one who's definitely adopted. What are you saying? You're not even Mommy's real daughter, Ember said. Oh. Are you sure about that? I have her dragon. Her legacy's passed on to me. Her first daughter, Hyseal continued no. And stop calling her Mommy Ninong. You're not her child. She didn't even contacted you for years while I was taken care of by her. Ember rebutted, nope, you're the one who's adopted. The two were having a heated argument and the maids who didn't know what to do or say was just standing there concerned. I'm not adopted, right? Ember looked at the maids. Why, you're right, princess, you're not adopted, she said. She stuttered, it's official, you're adopted. Ember cannot take it anymore and stand her ground, then pulled Hyseal's hair. I said I'm not adopted, she said as she was pulling her hair. You're like a barbarian using violence. You're so unlike Mommy Ninong, Hyseal said, fighting her off. Emery was there sitting and still reading the book unbothered while the maids didn't know what to do. Prince Emery, please stop those two. A maid tried coaxing Emery, it's a woman's fight. A man shouldn't be involved in a woman's fight. That's what father said. He said, then took a bite of his sandwich. The maids felt helpless and one called Alaris and Nicholas. Ember. Emery and Hyseal were both sitting in their knees facing the wall while Alaris was holding a slippers. Why am I also being punished? I didn't get involved. Emery asked. That's why you're being punished. You didn't try to stop them, Alaris answered. Father said that being involved with a woman's fight will do me no good. Alaris looked at Nicholas, who looked the other way. You kneel too, Alaris said. Why, I'm not involved. Kneel, Alaris commanded, and Nicholas obliged. Emery smirked at him. Way to go, father, he said. Raising a son is useless, muttered. You didn't raise me. You left us with mother, only right, Emery said. Enough. Ember and Hyseal, you're going to stay like that for an hour. Reflect on what you did wrong. Emery and Nicholas, you're going to kneel for half an hour. She said yes. Emery and Nicholas both muttered softly. Why? It's not fair, Ember said yes. The boys should also sit for an hour, Hyseal said. You guys fought for a baseless reasoning. You teased Ember that she's adopted, and you, Ember, pulled out her hair. She said she deserved it. That doesn't mean you should use violence. She told her. Father taught me how to do self-defense. Isn't this the time where it should be useful? Pulling one's hair isn't part of taught self-defense. Yeah. And I cut her some slack as to not pull out my sword. She said enough. You still won't reflect, so you both will kneel for another half an hour. Alaris said. That made Ember and Hyseal grunted and Alaris walked away. Yue was on the side just watching. Dad didn't even save me, Hyseal complained. Hey, you were in the wrong, so you deserve it too. Plus, I don't want to be an additional members of you guys. Goodbye, Emma, have some tea, he said. You guys suck. Emery said. Hi. Next chapter will be the last one, so stay tuned. It'll be the somewhat resolution of Alaris and Nicholas' story. See ya. Side Story 6, END of Side Stories. Like what Naira suggested. Nicholas keeps on sending letters to Alaris. Though not once did she reply to him. He will always heard that her letters was constantly coming to Naira and Ember, but never to him. Nicholas spent the years longing for the woman he can never have again. One day, when he was resting in the Empress palace, a letter arrived. The letter that he was waiting for decades. Your Majesty, how are you doing, Your Majesty? It's been a while, right? I don't know if I should still call you that since you are no longer the king and our daughter took on the throne for quite a while now. I hope you're doing great. I would like to invite you for a small dinner party. I hope you can make it, Alaris. Nicholas tried not to cry so the letter won't be smudged with his tears. He hugged the letter that he waited for so long. Thank you, he muttered. Nicholas arrived at Los Islas after a month together with Naira and Ember. He thought he will be welcomed by a happy and bright atmosphere, but he was not. By the palace gate is the reigning King Emery. It's been a while, father and sister, he said. You're looking good, brother. Naira said as he hugged Emery. So why would you call me from all the way to the north? Ember asked. Seems like you really like being the Duchess of the North for you to complain. Emery said, where's your mother? Nicholas finally spoke. Emery smiled sadly. Let's go. I'll take you to her room, he said. Emery took them to a room with lots of maid and some doctors. Nicholas felt nervous and his heart started pounding loudly. Father, let's get some tea first and let sisters talk to Mom. He said, and no, please let me see your mom first. He tried insisting that's Mom's order. We wouldn't want her to be upset, right? Emery said. Nicholas don't have a choice but to go with Emery. Mom was already old and she has been suffering a heart ailments for the last 2 years. She's been growing weaker and weaker. The doctors were trying to do their best, but she was already. Emery said softly while pouring his father tea. No one told me. Nicholas said, looking at his teacup blankly, unable to process the things that he just heard. She didn't want to tell anyone. Even my sisters didn't know, he said. He didn't utter a word after that. No one did. They were just there sitting and drinking tea. After a while, Ember and Naira emerged from the room. They were both sullen and their eyes were red and puffy from crying. Nicholas stood up and slowly went to the room. He was greeted by a gloomy atmosphere and the smell of herbs. He saw the most beautiful woman lying at her bed, even with her skinny body and dark circles under her eyes. In his eyes, her beauty was still there. What do they call it? Undying beauty. High. Her voice come off as a foreign sound for him. He didn't heard her voice for a long time now, so she sounded unfamiliar, and yet the gentleness laced in her voice was still familiar to him. Hello, he said, trying to hold back his tears. He walked a little closer and sit in the chair beside her bed. Can I hold your hand? Nicholas asked hesitantly. Alaris nodded. Nicholas gently held her hand towards his lips and clasped it. It's been a while, he said. Yeah. How's your stay here? He asked. It was enjoyable. It felt like I was home, Alaris said. Are you happy? I am, she said. Nicholas can no longer hold it back and his tears fell. I waited for your reply all these years like a good boy. He said. Alaris smiled softly. Well, you did a good job, she said. Their conversation was nothing deep. They both just exchanged a light and everyday conversation. But that conversation means the most for them. It felt like they came back to that office with a lot of paperwork, and to lighten the mood they will talk light-hearted conversations like this. Except there were no paperwork in sight. They didn't know how long they were talking, but the conversation just flowed constantly. You look ugly when you cry. You've been crying for a while now, Alaris said. Nicholas sighed and smiled. Yeah. And you still look as beautiful as ever, he said. Is that so? That is so. Alaris sighed and looked through the window. It's already dark outside and the bright moon was like watching them. The moon is really beautiful, isn't it? Nicholas said. Yeah. It's the most beautiful, but I will miss the sun's glorious light. She said. They were both silent for a while. Is it too much if I ask to hug you? Nicholas broke the silence. Sure, she said. Nicholas went to the bed and held her while also laying beside her. Can I kiss you? He said. It's the last time. So sure. She said. Nicholas gently kissed her forehead. Then her eyes, then her nose, then for the last. Her lips. Pain and happiness were all gushing towards him. He didn't want this time to end. He didn't want to let her go. He didn't want her to go. Nicholas. We started wrong and choose a lot of wrong choices, but I didn't regret them. Do you think you can wait for me in our next life? She said. Nicholas gently hugged her tightly. I've been waiting for decades. A couple of centuries is nothing, he said while crying. I see, then I can now sleep peacefully, she said. MHH. Nicholas replied. I'll look for you on our next life. And this time, you will be the only one in my life and I will love you with all my heart, he said. Alaris hugged him back and cupped his face to kiss him one last time. Then her hand on his face fell down and she stopped breathing. I am Hannah, the new intern for the HR department. And I hope to get along with you all. She introduced herself. The other employees greeted her back. We cannot throw you a celebration, 'cause the CEO will be here. Her supervisor said. CEO, yeah, just a heads up. He's a tyrant, he's a Spartan. He's super strict and always angry. Feels like the whole world is on his shoulders. She said while making face. He's that bad, he is. He fires employees left and right without consideration. So be careful, come. I'll introduce you to him, but be very polite, okay? She warned her. They were walking towards the elevator. The moment the elevator opens, a tall, handsome guy with blonde hair and ocean blue eyes stand in front of them holding his phone and chatting someone. Oh, good day, sir. We didn't know you were already here. Her supervisor said, bowing her head, which she did bow her head also. Who's this? His baritone voice said. Oh, this is Hannah, an intern of the HR department. She said and looked at him, which she also did. The moment their eyes met, the CEO suddenly hugged him out of the blue, which made everyone surprised. I've been waiting for you, he muttered. The END.